There is a plant growing in your garden right now that has more vitamin C than oranges, more vitamin A than spinach, and more protein per ounce than most vegetables you can buy. It requires no planting, no watering, no fertilizer. It produces 50 million seeds per acre that stay viable in the soil for 40 years. Pull it up, and it grows back stronger. For 3,000 years, Native Americans cultivated it as a staple grain alongside corn and beans. They called it part of the Eastern Agricultural Complex, a sophisticated agricultural system that fed millions. Then we called it a weed. We spray it with herbicides. We rip it out of gardens. We curse it for growing too well, for spreading too fast, for thriving without permission. We didn't abandon lamb's quarters because it failed. We abandoned it because colonialism taught us to fear anything that grows freely, anything we can't control, anything that reminds us food doesn't need to be bought. This is the story of the plant more nutritious than the vegetables we buy, yet poisoned in every farm field across America. The grain that rivaled quinoa but was erased when corn arrived. The survival food hiding in plain sight. The archive opens in the river valleys of eastern North America sometime around 2000 BCE. Long before European crops arrived, before wheat fields and apple orchards, indigenous peoples across the Mississippi Valley, the Great Lakes, and the eastern woodlands cultivated a sophisticated agricultural system. They did not rely on a single crop like modern monoculture. They grew a diverse mix of plants adapted to their specific climates and soils. Archaeologists call it the Eastern Agricultural Complex. It included maygrass, a tiny grain harvested in spring; little barley gathered in early summer, knotweed collected in late summer; sumpweed with oil-rich seeds; and at the center of it all, Chenopodium berlanderi. We call it lamb squarters today, goosefoot, pigweed, fat hen. But to the indigenous peoples who cultivated it for 3 millennia, it was a staple grain, a pseudo-cereal closely related to quinoa, amaranth, and chia. The plant grew 3 to 6 feet tall with broad, diamond-shaped leaves covered in a white, powdery coating that made them look frosted. In autumn, it produced dense seed heads packed with tiny black seeds, each one no bigger than a pinhead but nutritionally complete. Archaeological sites across the Midwest and Southeast contain storage pits filled with Chenopodium seeds. Some pits held hundreds of pounds, enough to feed families through winter. The seeds could be ground into flour for bread, boiled into porridge, popped like popcorn, mixed with fat and berries to make survival cakes that lasted months. The young leaves were eaten as greens, boiled, steamed, or added to soups. And the plant required almost no care. Scatter seeds in spring, harvest in fall. Leave some seeds behind, and next year a full crop appeared on its own. It was abundance without effort. But there was something else. Something that made Chenopodium extraordinary. It was more nutritious than almost anything else they could grow. A single 1-ounce serving of raw lamb squarters leaves contain 65% of the recommended daily allowance for vitamin A and 37% for vitamin C. More vitamin C than oranges, ounce for ounce. More vitamin A than spinach. More calcium than milk. The leaves are loaded with manganese, copper, iron, and both omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. They contain more protein per calorie than most vegetables. The seeds are even more impressive. Packed with complete protein, all 9 essential amino acids, high in fiber, rich in minerals. Nutritionally, lamb squarters rivals quinoa. In some measures, it exceeds it. For the indigenous peoples who cultivated it, lamb squarters was not just food, it was insurance. A crop that never failed, that required no irrigation, that produced even in poor soil and drought. When corn harvests were low, lamb squarters kept families alive. When game was scarce, the protein in the seeds sustained hunters. When gardens flooded, lamb squarters grew anyway. It was resilience itself. By 1000 CE, chenopodium cultivation had spread from the Great Lakes to the Gulf Coast, from the Appalachians to the Great Plains. Entire villages relied on it as a dietary staple. Then corn arrived. Maize, domesticated in Mesoamerica thousands of years earlier, slowly spread northward through trade networks. By 800 CE, it had reached the Mississippi Valley. At first, it was a minor crop, grown in small plots, supplemental. But corn had one advantage: yield. When grown in rich soil with adequate rainfall, corn produced more calories per acre than any plant in the Eastern agricultural complex. Indigenous farmers began planting more corn, less lamb's quarters, less maygrass, less knotweed. By 1150 CE, corn had become the dominant crop across eastern North America. The Eastern agricultural complex began to fade, not because it failed, because corn was more productive if you had the right conditions. But that shift came with a cost. Corn demands rich soil. It depletes nitrogen rapidly. It requires consistent rainfall. When droughts come, corn dies. Lamb's quarters thrives in poor soil. It tolerates drought. It actually improves soil quality by adding organic matter and preventing erosion. Corn creates dependence. Lamb's quarters creates resilience. But by the time European colonizers arrived in the 1600s, corn had already replaced the diverse agricultural systems that had sustained indigenous peoples for millennia. And then colonization finished what corn started. European settlers brought their own ideas about farming. Neat rows, single crops, wheat fields, orchards. They looked at lamb's quarters and saw chaos, a plant that grew without permission, that spread aggressively, that appeared in every disturbed patch of soil. They called it a weed. The grain that had fed millions for 3,000 years became something to eliminate. But lamb's quarters refused to die. It's one of the most successful plants on Earth. A single mature plant produces 70,000 to 100,000 seeds. An acre of lamb's quarters can produce 50 million seeds. Those seeds remain viable in the soil for 30 to 40 years. Buried 6 inches deep, they wait. When soil is disturbed, plowed, dug, scraped, they germinate. The plant exhibits extreme phenotypic plasticity. It adapts to whatever conditions it faces. In rich soil, it grows 6 feet tall. In poor soil, it stays low and produces seed anyway. In drought, it survives. In floods, it thrives. Cut it down, and it regrows from the base. Pull it up, and the seeds left behind ensure another generation. It's exceptionally capable of colonizing new areas. It appears wherever humans disturb the earth: farm fields, gardens, roadsides, construction sites. Farmers call it invasive. Gardeners curse it. Agricultural extension offices publish guides on how to kill it. But here's the irony. What we spend millions of dollars eliminating with herbicides outperforms everything we plant. Modern industrial agriculture is built on fighting nature. We plant crops that need perfect conditions: rich soil, abundant water, pest control, fertilizer. When weeds appear, we spray them with chemicals. When insects arrive, we spray again. Lamb's quarters grows despite all of it. It is resistant to many herbicides. It outcompetes planted crops for nutrients. It spreads faster than we can pull it. In 2023, American farmers spent over $4 billion on herbicides. A significant portion of that was spent trying to kill lamb's quarters and its relatives. We are poisoning a plant more nutritious than spinach, more resilient than corn, more productive than most vegetables. A plant indigenous peoples cultivated for 3,000 years as a staple grain. The disconnect is staggering. Agricultural researchers describe lamb's quarters as one of the more robust and competitive weeds. They study its genetics to understand how to kill it more effectively. Meanwhile, nutritionists analyze its nutrient content and call it a superfood. Foragers harvest it from roadsides and vacant lots. Health food advocates write articles praising its omega-3 fatty acids and complete protein. The same plant. One group trying to eliminate it, another trying to eat it. Colonialism does this. It severs the connection between people and their environment. It teaches us to fear plants that grow freely. It makes us forget that food does not have to be controlled to be valuable. There is a deeper pattern here. Lamb's quarters represents a kind of agriculture that capitalism cannot commodify. It requires no purchased seed. It spreads on its own. It grows in marginal land. It needs no fertilizer, no irrigation, no machinery. You cannot patent it. You cannot trademark it. You cannot sell farmers new seed every year. If people realized lamb's quarters was eatable, nutritious even, they might stop buying spinach trucked from California. They might harvest greens from their own yards. They might save seed and spread it deliberately. That threatens the industrial food system. So we are taught to see it as a problem, a pest, something to eliminate. Agricultural textbooks describe it as a noxious weed. Extension publications list it under invasive species. Garden centers sell herbicides specifically formulated to kill it. But indigenous peoples knew better. They understood that a plant which grows aggressively, spreads easily, and survives harsh conditions is not a problem. It is a gift. Food that produces itself. Nutrition that requires no effort. Resilience built into the ecosystem. We destroyed that knowledge. We called it primitive. We replaced diverse agricultural systems with monoculture corn and soybeans. And then we wondered why farms became fragile, why crops fail in drought, why soil degrades. The answer was growing in the margins the whole time, waiting for someone to remember. In the 1970s, foraging guides began rediscovering lamb's quarters. Wild food advocates tasted the leaves and realized they were delicious, mild, slightly nutty, similar to spinach, but less bitter. Nutritional analysis confirmed what indigenous peoples had known. Lamb's quarters is a nutritional powerhouse. It is higher in vitamins A and C than most cultivated greens. It has more calcium than kale, more protein than lettuce. And it is loaded with omega-3 fatty acids, which are rare in leafy greens. And it grows everywhere. Urban foragers harvest it from vacant lots. Homesteaders let it grow in their gardens. Permaculture advocates call it a pioneer species, a plant that heals disturbed soil and prepares it for other crops. Some farmers are even starting to cultivate it deliberately. Small-scale growers plant it as a cut-and-come-again green, harvesting leaves throughout the season. Seed companies now sell lamb's quarter seeds, marketed as an heirloom vegetable, a forgotten superfood, an indigenous grain. The weed is becoming a crop again, but the mainstream food system still treats it as an enemy. Industrial farms spray it. Suburban homeowners poison it. Municipal parks classify it as invasive and pull it up by the roots. We are killing free food, free nutrition, free resilience. Climate change is making this even more absurd. As temperatures rise and droughts intensify, farmers are struggling to grow crops that need consistent rainfall and cool temperatures. Spinach bolts in heat, lettuce turns bitter, corn withers without irrigation, but lamb's quarters thrives in heat. It survives drought. It grows in poor soil where other crops fail. It's exactly the kind of plant we need as the climate destabilizes. But instead of cultivating it, we're spraying it with glyphosate. The plant that could feed people through climate chaos is treated as a problem to be solved. Meanwhile, we import spinach from California, lettuce from Arizona, greens trucked thousands of miles and wrapped in plastic. When lamb's quarters is growing in every backyard for free. The story of lamb's quarters is the story of colonialism. It is the story of indigenous knowledge erased, replaced with European agricultural systems that do not fit the land. It is the story of plants that succeed without permission being labeled weeds. It is the story of resilience dismissed as invasiveness. For 3,000 years, Native Americans cultivated lamb's quarters as a staple grain. They understood its value nutritionally, agriculturally, culturally. Then corn arrived and cultivation decreased. Then colonizers arrived and knowledge disappeared. By the 1800s, lamb's quarters was just another weed in the field. Something to be eliminated, not celebrated. But the plant never left. It adapted, it spread, it thrived in the disturbed soils of farms and gardens and roadsides. It waited for people to remember. Today, that memory is returning. Indigenous food sovereignty movements are reclaiming traditional foods. Educators are teaching about the Eastern agricultural complex. Archaeologists are documenting ancient agricultural systems. Foragers are harvesting lamb's quarters from urban lots and sharing recipes online. Nutritionists are analyzing its nutrient content and calling it a superfood. Small-scale farmers are planting it deliberately, recognizing its value as a resilient, nutritious green. The knowledge was never fully lost, it was just buried, waiting for people willing to dig. Lamb's quarters is still here, still growing, still producing free food in every garden, every farm field, every vacant lot. The question is not whether it can feed us. It already does for those who know how to see it. The question is whether we are ready to stop calling it a weed and start calling it food. We didn't lose lamb's quarters, we chose to forget it. We replaced indigenous agricultural systems with European monoculture. We replaced diverse crops with corn and soybeans. We replaced resilience with fragility, and we called it progress. But the plant never left. It has been waiting in the margins, growing in every disturbed patch of soil, producing millions of seeds that stay viable for decades. More vitamins than spinach, more protein than lettuce, more resilient than anything we plant. Free in every garden, all we have to do is stop poisoning it and start eating it. If this vault opens something for you, subscribe to Nature Lost Vault and hit the bell. Every like and every share preserves what they tried to erase. The knowledge lives in the soil, in every lamb's quarters plant still growing, in every seed waiting to germinate, in every person willing to see food instead of weeds. The Eastern agricultural complex never died. It just went underground, waiting for us to remember.